Good morning guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we will be reviewing the all-new Mercedes-Benz C63 SE Performance AMG, something like that, something along those lines. But any case, this is the brand new AMG C63 Performance. So super excited about this review because we not only have a all-out performance car that is on par with supercar standards in terms of performance, but we also have a car that is also very livable from a day-to-day standpoint. It's got 4 doors, it's got a very normal ride height, and a proper boot as well in the rear. So very excited to go on this review. But before we do all that, if you're a driver in Singapore, you're looking to renew your insurance code for the best price possible, be sure to check out the link in the description box because some of the best quotes for you, free to inquire. Please check us out and compare. And with that, let's get on with the review. Let's go. Alright, so jumping straight into the review. This is the exterior of the C63 Performance, and this is I must say, this matte black paint job is really giving off the correct vibes of the car. But you know, interestingly, I was just talking to a friend the other day, and we were just talking about how, you know, because the C63 now runs on a 2-litre engine, it even has a plug-in hybrid drivetrain, and it's basically kind of efficient if you want the car to be. So essentially, this car is not just for the all-out performance enthusiasts, it's also for the well-heeled consumers who perhaps want something that is performance oriented, has a proper performance pedigree, but also want to drive it around comfortably day to day. And because of that, I'm not sure presenting it in a matte black paint job is gonna get the best. I feel like this car could afford to be presented in a slightly more luxurious fashion rather than an all-out performance fashion. So something a little bit like a matte blue that you see on a CLE AMG, something like that might be more interesting. Okay, but anyway, all that is just my ramblings lah. Okay, it's personal opinion. So let's just dive into the design of the car, right? So generally shape and form standard C-Class, but of course you have all the massive AMG kits. So you've got your body kit, AMG body kit, with the side vents. You've also got the power dome with the inlet. I am so sorry about the cleanliness of the car because it's just been raining like crazy the last couple of days. So the car is a little bit wonky in terms of the cleanliness. You've got some side vents here. I am not sure if these are real. I don't think that they are. I do see some holes here. I'm not sure if they do anything. Yeah, but anyway, as a reference to the plug-in hybrid drivetrain that the C63 now has, it says Turbo E Performance. So in the past, you would see like what, V12 by turbo or something like that, right? But anyway, now it just says Turbo E Performance, which I think is also pretty cool, very modern. And then, in terms of wheel size, this is a 20-inch wheels as standard. So not too ostentatious, didn't go to 21 or things like that. But you know, I feel like if you really wanted to, you could. As it is now, the ride quality is already quite stiff. So I will probably stick with the 20-inch wheels if I were you. Now down the rear, you have the C63S in a sort of there's a bit of a red accent to it. I actually didn't realize this until like this morning, but I kind of prefer if it was just in silver actually, because this does look a little bit cartoonish. But I think all that is quite immaterial. The overall car still looks very, very, very good, obviously. Now, nice little bit of a rear diffuser here. I think the exhaust pipes are not real. So, if you can see, the actual pipes are inside. And then these external AMG ones are just coverings, which are part of the rear diffuser. Now, earlier on I spoke about how this car appeals to a wider range of audiences because now it's not just a all-out angry, massively sized engine performance car. It's also a, you know, you can actually use this car for day-to-day purposes, and this boot size is evidence that it can do that. Obviously, you've got a little bit of a bump here, which is because of the plug-in hybrid battery. But aside from that, you can still fit a golf bag in here, and it's definitely still a very usable boot size for day-to-day grocery shopping or even traveling up north as well. So yeah, very, very cool car. Now, let's jump inside the interior, and I'll show you around some of the bits and pieces that you can find in the interior, including the AMG specific steering wheel, which now features one additional drive mode as compared to previous versions of the car. Let's go. Alright guys, so welcome to the cabin of the Mercedes-Benz C63 Performance, and essentially what you get on the interior in terms of the front end of the dashboard, the basic architecture is that of a standard C class. So this is in line with the current generation of C-Class sedans. However, there are of course AMG bits that are different in the car. So the most obvious thing that you will see is the AMG Sport Bucket seats, and this is of course emblazoned with the AMG emblems. I don't know if you can see, but yeah, there's an AMG emblem here, and then there is a AMG logo at the top over here with the Affalterbach emblem. So you also get some red accents, red stitching, red seat belts, and that is generally some of the bits and pieces that you'll find in the AMG car. What's most different is obviously the steering wheel, which is of course a full spec AMG steering wheel. So this is not just your standard AMG trim steering wheel. Of course, in terms of the design, this is the latest generation standard one, but there are some extra bits and pieces. So first and foremost, partial part of the steering wheel is in Alcantara, and this is obviously the portion where you would grip with your racing gloves. So Alcantara on Alcantara, very good grip, and this is the portion where you will be holding. So this part different from the regular AMG steering wheel. The other part that is different from the regular AMG steering wheels is the fact that it has two selectors over here. Now, the one that you'll probably use the most often is the one on the right, where it has your drive mode. Not your gear selector, your drive mode. So right now, I'm in comfort mode. Okay. Hey, interesting. Oh, okay. Okay, so if you tap it, okay, so comfort mode, if you swivel the wheel to the right, it goes into sport mode. And what happens here is that there is a change in the way the engine reacts, the shift points of the transmission, and of course the stiffness of the suspension. And this trend continues as you change upwards towards more performance-oriented driving modes. So you got Sport Plus as well. You can immediately hear the engine kind of wake up a little bit. And then for actually, I'm not very sure if this is the first time ever they're including this in a car, but I've never actually seen a race mode in a AMG vehicle yet. I might be mistaken, but this is the first time I'm seeing it in this car or in any other AMG car. So there is a race mode right now, and that's one additional performance race mode that you normally get. To the right of race mode is your electric mode. But it's kind of weird, isn't it? How the electric mode isn't placed beside comfort mode, but rather placed beside the the race mode. So it's kind of abrupt when you go from race mode and your engine's like brrrr, and then you suddenly go into electric mode, which cuts off everything, and then the car becomes silent. I think it will be more reasonable if the electric mode was placed beside the comfort mode. But anyway, small issue, doesn't really affect anything in the car. On the left side over here, you have some toggle switches for your AMG dynamics selections. So you can actually toggle your settings from basic, advanced, and pro, even master actually. But you need to be in, wait, let me see. Ooh. There is actually a master mode, but I'm not exactly sure how to engage that at the moment. And you know, that's probably something that we'll never need to use in Singapore as well, or something we probably will need to use on track. So these are the two little bits that allow you some additional adjustability in the car's performance, which obviously is very cool. In terms of luxury, infotainment touchscreen, standard MBUX system, compatible with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You've got a digital driver's display. In this particular car, you have some additional display modes that you can choose from. Let me see what's happening. Okay, so currently now I'm in track pace mode, so it has a certain it's a different layout with a G-force meter, and then of course you've got super sport mode, which is another variation of it. And then if you don't want that, you can just go to standard sport mode, which is I think something that you already see from many other Mercedes-Benz cars, not just the performance cars. And then you got your classic, which is a little bit boring for a car like that. Understated, which is even more strange because this is probably something you use in the E-Class. And then for those of you who are a bit geographically challenged, you also have your navigation mode, which I think is a bit unnecessary, but nonetheless it is available on the car. Sound system runs on a Burmester sound system, some of the best systems on the market at the moment in my opinion. I think definitely better than the Harman Kardon stuff that you get in other cars. You got the cheese grater speaker grill as well, which we all love. Okay, then the rest of the car is actually pretty standard. You know, you've got very sensible amenities in the car. You've got seat adjustment, memory seats. You've got windows, like you've got your window controls here. You've got 2 cup holders, wireless charging pad. You've got this little cubby space, USB chargers. Very livable car. Now let's jump in the rear seat and check out the rear seats, because for those of you who might maybe still have family obligations and you want a performance car, and maybe that's the reason you haven't purchased yourself a 2-door performance car, let's see what this 4-door performance sedan or saloon can do for you. Let's go. Alright, so okay, so welcome to the rear of the C63, and actually rear seating space is pretty good. I didn't actually realize that the seats were actually like you could actually fit your hands through and touch the driver, which is pretty quirky. Can tickle the driver as he's driving around the racetrack. But in any case, this is the amount of legroom that I have in the car. This is not in comfort access mode or anything. The car's still on. And this driver's seat is in a regular driving position. And this is the amount of legroom that I have. So pretty good amount. The seat is, I mean, it feels quite compact. So perhaps that's the reason why it feels quite roomy. I can't really remember. I mean, it's been a while since we test drove the regular C-Class, so I can't really remember or visually make a comparison as to how much more legroom we have, but I'm pretty comfortable in here. I'm 175 meters tall, and this is the amount of legroom that I have, so anybody smaller than I am should be more than comfortable in the rear of this car. In terms of air conditioning, obviously you got air conditioning vents, but you also have 2-zone climate controls at the back. Let me see. Yeah, you even have separate blower speeds for the rear passengers, which is pretty cool, pretty luxurious. Don't think that's absolutely necessary for a car like that, but nonetheless, if it's gonna be included, I guess no harm. And then you've got your sporty AMG seats. The whole sporty AMG styling continues to the back as well. So you've got the red stitching, you've got the red seat belts here. Let me show you. I'm not sure whether you're a fan of red seat belts, but it's a really nice shade of red actually. Ooh, really striking. Very cool. And of course, the last thing that I really like about the car, which I think will be very good for anybody who's carrying younger kids in the back of this car, is the fact that it has built-in blinds, which I think are an absolute winner of a feature, because obviously sometimes kids fall asleep in the car and then the sun hits their eyes and they wake up and then they're super cranky. So, well, actually not just for kids lah, but I'm sure adults like to be in darkness as well. So yeah, these are all very useful, and what you can kind of deduce is that this is an extremely good car, even for day-to-day use. You know, there are no challenges or compromises when it comes to the car being a performance car. Like, that does not infringe on the practicality and the livability of the car. So I think that's really awesome. So let's now jump back into the driver's seat. I'm gonna go take the car for a drive and tell you a little bit more about how is it like to operate this vehicle in Singapore. Let's go. Alright, so back in the driver's seat of the C63, and what you will realize is that I've just started the car up, and there wasn't really much noise, and it's because the car is currently in comfort mode, and of course this car houses a plug-in hybrid drivetrain as well. So the engine isn't actually on per se at the moment, but if I turn the car into sport mode, you hear the car wake up. So that's a really satisfying noise. I think it will be nice if when you started up this car, it automatically did this rather than starting up in silence, because I think a car like that needs to be heard, and definitely, aside from being a performance vehicle, it's also definitely a luxury and lifestyle vehicle that, you know, owners will want to show off. So starting up quietly is probably not the most ideal state. But in any case, before we go for a drive, let's talk a little bit about the car's specifications. I think one of the biggest pieces of news with the new C63, obviously, it is 2-litre engine. It's the smallest engine ever put into a C63, and obviously this does detract from the 63 name or moniker, in the sense where the original C63 was a 6.3 litre. But I think it's just a matter of going with the times. Manufacturers definitely still have to keep up with emission standards, efficiency standards. So although this is the smallest ever engine put into a C63, this engine is also one of the most powerful 2-litre engines ever built. And this, of course, is paired with a plug-in hybrid drivetrain. So the 2-litre twin turbocharged 4-cylinder engine paired with the electric motor produces about 671 brake horsepower, which is quite a lot. And aside from the 671 brake horsepower, what's really impressive about this car is the fact that it has more than 1000 Newton meters of torque, and we haven't seen that in a road-going vehicle in quite a while, I think. I mean, aside from supercars, and even sometimes supercars don't really have that amount of power. Granted, the C63 is a full-fledged 4-door sedan, and it's not exactly the lightest car on the market as well. So in terms of power to weight ratio, it all kind of adds up. 0 to 100 in the C63 is 3.4 seconds. So that is a properly quick car. This puts it in supercar territory, but of course with the convenience of a 4-door package. One of the things that I really want to highlight about this car is that when I was looking through the efficiency figures, and obviously you know in terms of driving modes, you have quite a lot of options in this car, and that means that you can drive the car in many different ways. You know, the car isn't angry and firing all the time. You can actually drive this car in comfort mode, where it does get quite a lot of assistance from the electric motor, and you can also drive the car in pure electric mode. Granted, the range on the electric mode or the electric only mode is quite short, but it's still something you can do. But all things aside, I think generally, if you want to be, you know, for people who want to drive this car in a very in a day-to-day manner, you really don't have to drive this car in sports or sports plus or race mode or track mode. if you drive this car around in let me just clear out my so many leaves, oh my god. Yeah, so it's been raining the last couple of days, so quite a lot of leaves on the car. I'm sorry though, like I'm really apologetic about that. But not much we can do about it. Let me just flush the windscreen here for a little bit before we go for our drive. Make sure I can see out of the car. Yes, but if you were to drive the car in comfort mode, Mercedes says that the C63 should achieve an economy figure of up to 14.7 kilometers per litre, which is actually pretty amazing considering the performance pedigree of this car. Because any of you who are driving older cars in general, like myself, for example, I drive a BMW F10, I also have a Lexus RX 270. Those cars will be getting like 8.5 kilometers per litre. So although this C63 is in the upper echelons of performance cars, it's producing economy figures or efficiency figures that would match older, very day-to-day pedestrian cars. So if you were to drive the C63 in a very regular fashion, and obviously even if you're the owner of this car, you're not going to be gunning this car all the time. So if you drive this car in comfort mode, you know, you are actually able to achieve a very reasonable 14.7 kilometers per litre. And 14.7 kilometers isn't even terrible by today's standards. It's actually pretty good even by today's standards. Obviously now with, you know, a lot of EVs on the market, you know, you can't really compare it the efficiency in an apple to apple kind of manner. But there are still many petrol cars and hybrid vehicles who are sitting sub 20 kilometers per litre, that sort of range. So with that in mind, the C63 is actually quite a livable or quite a reasonable day-to-day car that you can drive and enjoy a decent level of efficiency should you decide that you don't want to juice it every single day. And as you can see, you know, driving out of the car park, generally the car behaves in a very regular fashion. Suspension setup is sort of adaptive, so when you turn it to comfort mode, the suspension does adjust to a comfort setting, and everything feels quite, it almost feels like a regular car. Although that being said, I would say that suspension setup is still a little bit firm for a regular car, but in no ways uncomfortable. Around humps, suspension is a little bit harsh, but when you talk about road imperfections and going over undulations in the road surface, I would say that the firmness actually works to the advantage of the C63, and you actually get quite a comfortable ride as you're going around town. And up on the highways as well, if you are going at a little bit of a higher speed and you're cruising, let's say you're taking a drive to Malaysia, what you will find is that this firmer suspension setup is going to be very beneficial for when the road dips and when there are undulations in the road, because the car just does not bounce at all. And if you turn the car to its sportier settings, this is even more pronounced. It's almost like actually in race mode, it's almost like the car has no suspension, it's just like a plank. That's really solid, and of course that translates to excellent handling when you do decide you want to chuck the car around corners. But unfortunately, you know, in Singapore, you know, for purposes of this review, we don't really have the luxury to kind of gun the car all out as well, and we also don't really have the luxury of chucking the car around corners at insane speeds, because we just don't have the roads to support that kind of driving. So I think to a great extent, today's review and my assessment of the car is really based off not so much how quick the car is, because honestly I don't know. I haven't hit 3.4 seconds in the car. I haven't redlined the car, but it's really more about whether or not the C63 is a livable day-to-day car. It's something that you can live with on a day-to-day basis. Can you use it as a daily driver, or is it just going to be extremely tiring and extremely tedious to drive with all the engine roar? And I think enough has been said, because I've been talking about the car while driving for the last 5 minutes or so, and you can already tell that this is a super. It's a very dailyable car, comfortable, quiet in comfort mode, and with quite a bit of practicality built in as well. But enough of the boring stuff, I guess. So should you decide you want to have a little fun, you can turn the car up to sport. And actually, for since we are reviewing the car, let's just bring the car up to race mode. So in race mode, the engine wakes up quite a little bit, and suspension setup becomes a lot firmer. So when you're taking corners like that, there really isn't any body roll whatsoever. And from a driving perspective, from a driving dynamic standpoint, this is a wonderful, wonderful car to drive. The inner old man in me sometimes feels like this would be too uncomfortable to live with on a day-to-day basis. But other people I've spoken to, perhaps those who are younger at heart, would disagree. They say that actually this is still considered very comfortable for a car that produces up to supercar levels of performance. So let's see. So obviously we're not going to get the car to we're not going to be able to do a 0 to 100 3.4 second test, but from what other people have experienced, this car should be even quicker than that. And if you really want to step on it, it's mind-bending. And you know, it's not the most beautiful sounding car on the market in terms of performance cars, because obviously it doesn't have a large V8 or a screaming V10. But you know, in today's day and age, I think this is this is really acceptable, and not just acceptable, but it also kind of gives you or rather, it really makes you think, right? You know, if performance cars of today were to continue in the mold that they have always been made in, which is of course super large engines, super large displacements, no efficiency built in, there's going to come a time where we won't have supercars anymore because regulations would just not allow it. But it is cars like this, like the C63, that have found a way to inbuild a plug-in hybrid technology and use that hybrid technology to its advantage in terms of performance, paired with a very reasonable 2-litre turbocharged, twin turbocharged engine, produce insane levels of torque and power. And this is a kind of template that I think we're going to see a lot more of in the future, not just from Mercedes-Benz but also from other automakers. And this is a sort of template that's going to allow us to have and enjoy supercars or performance cars for a long time to come, because these are the cars that are going to be able to keep up with the efficiency standards or the emission standards set forth by a lot of governments and a lot of regulatory bodies. So in a certain way, although there is a little bit of a compromise in terms of the car specs and the way this power is being delivered, I think it's an excellent compromise, and I think an amazing job has been done to even produce something like that. Granted, the car doesn't feel as pure as its predecessors, and it feels a little bit augmented, you know, with the electric power. It just feels like it's a very complicated car to, you know, with a lot of bits and pieces working in tandem. It's not pure, like it's not like a pure large engine NA, but it is still a very enjoyable car to drive at the end of the day. So whether or not this is a car for you, you know, if you're looking for a performance car in Singapore, I like the fact that the C63 now allows you to have the best of both worlds. It's not angry all the time anymore. You have an option to choose between so many different drive modes, because right now I'm in comfort, then you've got sport, you've got sport plus, you've got race, and then you've got pure EV mode. In fact, let me drive around in EV mode for just the final bit of this review as well. So, perfectly quiet, feels like an EV, but you still get that real tanky, real sporty, that stiff chassis feeling that you expect from a performance car. Obviously, please don't go and attempt to break any land speed records in EV mode, because it's not made for that purpose. In fact, I don't really know why it's made. Why there's a pure EV mode as well, because I don't think I don't actually think it's necessary, given that the electric only range is, you know, much less than 100 kilometers. It's actually quite little, so I don't really see a. Maybe only in traffic jams, you know, like maybe if you're stuck on the causeway and you are in traffic jam, and electric only mode would be quite pleasant to utilize. But other than that, I think most of the time driving around in comfort mode is more than adequate. But look at that sound. Such a nice sound. Alright, so before we go, just going to just give this car a little bit of a rev before we go. So put the car in park, let's put it in race mode, and they still get a bit of those like pops and crackles, a tiny bit of it. Still a performance car. In any case, if you have any questions about the car that I have missed out on, because there are a lot of things to say about this car, please put your questions in the comments section below. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions if I have the answer. And as usual, you know, if you have enjoyed this review or found it useful in any way, please put your not put your comments, but please give this video a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, because we've got more and more reviews coming out every single week. In fact, just talk to me in the comments, right? Just let me know how we're doing, let me know what you'd like to see. We've got a wide range of comments on plenty of our videos, and through those videos we often get ideas about what to do next or what cars to review next. So if you have any idea of what you'd like to see, please put your suggestions in the comment section below. If you're a driver in Singapore and you're looking for an insurance renewal quote, please check out the link in the description box below, because we've got some of the most competitive quotes in Singapore for your browsing. If you already have a quote, no problem, it's free to inquire with us. You can always compare the two quotes and see which one works better for you. It's free to inquire, like I said, so please check that out. As usual, please take care of yourself, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.